Alex, a 22-year-old with warm brown eyes and dark brown hair, sat anxiously at the kitchen table, checking his email. He'd applied for several jobs in recent weeks, but there was something about Thompson Interior Design that had drawn him in. The day of the interview, his mother, Sarah, had encouraged him to be confident. "I'm sure you'll do great, honey," Sarah had said, with a warm smile as she straightened his tie. "You've always been hard-working and dedicated. I'm proud of you." Sarah, a 45-year-old woman with dark brown hair and eyes full of love and determination, had raised Alex on her own. She'd told her son that his father had died in an accident, a truth she had constructed to shield him from the pain and confusion of a complicated past. Alex had always felt a mixture of curiosity and emptiness when he thought about his father, but he had accepted the story his mother had told him and focused on forging his own path. Now, he was about to embark on a new stage in his professional life and hoped his effort and dedication would pay off. That morning, as he checked his email, one message in particular caught his eye. It was from Thompson. His heart raced as he opened the email. His eyes widened in surprise and joy as he read the first line. "We are pleased to inform you that you have been selected for the position of design assistant at our company." Alex jumped up, nearly knocking over his chair. He couldn't believe it. He had gotten the job. He ran to the living room where Sarah was folding laundry. "Mum, they hired me!" Alex shouted excitedly. "Thompson hired me!" Sarah dropped a shirt and turned toward him, her face filled with joy and relief. "Alex, that's wonderful," she said, pulling him into a tight hug. "I knew you could do it. I'm so proud of you." "Thanks, Mom," Alex replied, feeling a surge of emotion. He had worked so hard to reach this point, and now, finally, his efforts were being rewarded. Sarah released him and looked into his eyes. "This is just the beginning, son. You're going to do amazing things there. Just remember to be yourself and work hard, like you always have." Alex nodded, feeling a mixture of excitement and nervousness. He knew this was a unique opportunity, and he was determined to make the most of it. The morning was fresh and clear when Alex arrived at the Thompson Designs headquarters for his first day of work. The building, with its glass and steel facade, reflected the rising sun, highlighting its modernity and elegance. Upon entering, Alex found himself in a spacious lobby decorated with minimalist furniture and carefully selected plants, creating a welcoming and professional atmosphere. The receptionist greeted him with a smile and directed him to the 10th floor, where Mr. Thompson's office was located. Alex, still a little nervous, took the elevator and mentally prepared himself for the day ahead. He knew that working under Mr. Thompson's direction would be a challenge, but also an invaluable opportunity to learn and grow in his career. When the elevator doors opened, Alex was greeted by a carpeted hallway that led to a series of offices and meeting rooms. Everything about the design of the space spoke of precision and good taste. The walls were adorned with paintings of modern art, and every detail seemed to have been carefully considered. Finally, he reached the door to Mr. Thompson's office and knocked softly. "Come in," came the firm voice from inside. Alex entered and found himself in a large, bright room. Mr. Thompson's office was a perfect blend of classic and contemporary. A large, dark wood desk dominated the center of the space, surrounded by bookshelves filled with neatly organized books and folders. In one corner, a tall plant added a touch of green, while the windows offered a breathtaking view of the city. "Good morning, Mr. Thompson," Alex greeted respectfully. "I'm Alex, the new assistant." Mr. Thompson looked up from his papers and gave a slight smile. "Good morning, Alex. Welcome. Please, have a seat." Alex sat down in front of the desk and listened attentively as Mr. Thompson explained his initial tasks. As the conversation progressed, Alex couldn't help but feel a growing admiration for the man before him. The way Mr. Thompson spoke, with clarity and authority, denoted years of experience and an undeniable passion for his work. After the meeting, Alex was led to his own workspace, a small but functional desk in a room shared with other assistants. From there, he had a partial view of Mr. Thompson's office, allowing him to discreetly observe his movements and learn from his daily routine. Mid-morning, Alex was sent to take some documents to Mr. Thompson's office. As he entered, he noticed something that caught his attention. On one of the shelves there was a hand-embroidered picture depicting a serene landscape with a river winding between green hills. Alex felt a chill. That image was almost identical to an old photograph he had at home, one of the few things his mother had left him as a memento. Intrigued, Alex couldn't help but move a little closer to get a better look at the picture. The details of the embroidery were impressive. Every thread seemed to have been placed with extraordinary care and precision. "It's a beautiful work, isn't it?" Mr. Thompson's voice startled him out of his reverie. "Yes, sir. It's really impressive," Alex replied, trying to hide his surprise. "It was a gift from someone very special many years ago. It has always reminded me of simpler times." Alex nodded, though his mind was racing with questions. The coincidence was too great to ignore. Could there be a connection between Mr. Thompson and his family? He decided not to inquire further for the time being, but curiosity had already taken root in his mind. For the rest of the day, Alex tried to concentrate on his tasks, but he couldn't stop thinking about the picture. The image brought back memories of his childhood and of his mother, Sarah, working tirelessly to support him, and the home they shared. There was something about Mr. Thompson's expression when he spoke of the picture that seemed familiar, a mixture of nostalgia and melancholy. The air in the office was thick with the constant hum of conversations and the clatter of keyboards. Alex, while performing his daily tasks, couldn't get his mind off the embroidered picture in Mr. Thompson's office. There was something about that image that sparked an insatiable curiosity in him. He decided he needed to know more about the man he worked for. During his lunch break, Alex approached Marta, one of the company's most senior assistants. She always seemed to be in the loop about everything that was going on in the office. "Marta, can I ask you something?" Alex said, trying to sound casual. "Sure, Alex. What is it?" Marta replied, smiling. "I was organizing some documents in Mr. Thompson's office, and I saw an embroidered picture. It caught my attention because it's very similar to one I have at home. Do you know anything about it? Or about Mr. Thompson?" Marta frowned slightly, as if trying to remember something. "Well, Mr. Thompson is quite private about his personal life. I know that picture is very special to him, but he's never said much about it. He's a strict but fair leader, that's for sure. Always maintains professionalism in the office." Alex nodded, though the answer didn't fully satisfy his curiosity. "I understand. It just seemed interesting to me. Thanks, Marta." As he walked back to his desk, Alex realized that getting direct information about Mr. Thompson would be difficult. The director's discretion regarding his private life only added to the mystery. Determined to find out more, Alex began to observe more carefully, looking for any clues that might shed light on Mr. Thompson's past. A couple of days later, Alex got the opportunity he had been waiting for. Mr. Thompson left early for an off-site meeting, leaving him with a couple of free hours to explore. His heart pounding, Alex headed for the director's office and gently closed the door behind him. He started with the bookshelves, meticulously reviewing every folder and book. Most were work documents, contracts, and old projects. Nothing personal. Then he approached the dark wooden desk that dominated the room. Carefully he opened the top drawer, finding only common office supplies. The second drawer, however, revealed something more interesting: an old photo album. Alex sat down in Mr. Thompson's chair and opened the album with trembling hands. The first few pages contained photos of a happy young couple in various landscapes that seemed familiar. The woman in the photos had a warm smile and eyes full of life. Alex realized it was Sarah, his mother, but much younger. The man beside her, clearly in love, was Mr. Thompson. Each picture was a testament to their love, from walks in the park to romantic dinners. But towards the end of the album, the photos became less frequent, and the expressions of both changed, reflecting the strain and sadness of separation. Alex found a letter carefully folded between the pages. He unfolded it and began to read, discovering Mr. Thompson's words of farewell, explaining that his family did not approve of the relationship and that he had to leave. Alex's eyes filled with tears as he understood the pain they both must have felt. Suddenly, he heard a noise outside the office and quickly put the album and letter back in the drawer, closing it just in time before Marta walked in. "Alex, is everything okay?" she asked, surprised to find him there. "Yes, I was just organizing some papers." "Thanks, Marta," Alex said, trying to stay calm. The rest of the day passed in a blur of confused thoughts and conflicting emotions. Alex knew he had to talk to his mother about what he had discovered, but he also understood that this could open old wounds. That night, when he got home, Alex sat down with Sarah and showed her the photograph he'd found in Mr. Thompson's office. "Mum, can I ask you something?" Alex said, his voice cautious. Sarah looked at the photo, and her face paled. "Where did you get this, Alex?" she asked, her voice trembling slightly. "In Mr. Thompson's office. Mum, I need to know the truth about him and about our past." Sarah took a deep breath, knowing the time had come to reveal the secrets she had kept hidden for so long. Alex couldn't contain his anxiety as he held the old photograph he'd found in Mr. Thompson's office. The resemblance to the embroidered picture he had at home was undeniable. Determined to uncover the truth, Alex took the picture from his house and carefully stored it in his backpack before heading to work the next day. He arrived at the office earlier than usual, making sure he'd have enough time before Mr. Thompson arrived. Heart pounding, he headed to the director's office, taking a deep breath before opening the door and entering. He went straight to the dark wooden desk, his mind racing with questions and his heart heavy with anxiety. He carefully opened the second drawer just as he had done before, and took out the photo album and the letter he had found. The images of his mother, Sarah, and Mr. Thompson together, happy once, filled his mind with memories and mixed emotions. Alex's hands trembled slightly as he opened the album and reread Mr. Thompson's farewell letter. The words, written with pain and love, explaining how his family had forced their separation, left him with a lump in his throat. At that moment, the office door swung open. Mr. Thompson entered, and his eyes immediately fell on Alex, who was sitting with the album and letter in his hands. "What are you doing here, Alex?" Mr. Thompson asked, his voice firm, but his eyes held a mixture of surprise and concern. Alex stood up slowly, feeling the weight of the moment. "I need answers, Mr. Thompson," Alex said, trying to remain calm. "I found these photos and this letter. I need to know the truth about you and my mother." Mr. Thompson stood silent for a moment, his gaze fixed on the young man. Finally, he let out a deep sigh and nodded. "All right, Alex. It's time you knew the truth," Mr. Thompson replied, his voice softer now. "Sarah and I met when we were young, and we fell deeply in love. But my family didn't approve of our relationship. They did everything they could to separate us, And in the end, I was forced to leave her, even though I loved her deeply. Alex felt a wave of conflicting emotions. Anger, sadness, and compassion swirled within him as he listened. "And you never knew my mother was pregnant?" Alex asked, trying to understand how so much time had passed without him knowing the truth. Mr. Thompson shook his head, his eyes filled with pain. "I had no idea. When I left, I thought it was for the best, that she could have a better life without the shadow of my family hanging over us. If I had known—" His voice cracked slightly. "If I had known she was carrying my child, I would never have let us be torn apart." Alex felt his own emotions welling up. He pulled the embroidered picture from his backpack and showed it to Mr. Thompson. "This picture has been in our house for as long as I can remember. It's identical to the one you have in your office. It has always intrigued me, but I never imagined it could lead me to discover something like this." Mr. Thompson took the picture with trembling hands, his eyes filling with tears as he looked at it. "This was all I had left of her," he said, his voice breaking. "I never stopped thinking about Sarah. I never stopped loving her. And now, to know that you are our son, it's more than I could have ever hoped for." The tension in the room was palpable. Alex took a deep breath, trying to process everything he had just heard. "What do we do now?" he asked finally, his voice full of uncertainty. Mr. Thompson looked at Alex with determination. "The first thing is to talk to your mother. We owe it to her to tell her all of this. I know it will be difficult, but we deserve to know the whole truth, and you deserve to know your family." Alex nodded, sensing that a new chapter was about to begin. Although the road ahead would be complicated, he was determined to uncover the whole truth and finally piece together the past that had been hidden for so long. It was a quiet afternoon when Alex and Mr. Thompson made their way to Sarah's house. They had decided it was time to face the past and reveal the truth that had remained hidden for so many years. Alex, his heart pounding, felt nervous but determined. Mr. Thompson, for his part, wore a mixture of hope and anxiety on his face. Sarah's house, a modest dwelling in a quiet neighborhood, was surrounded by a small, well-tended garden. Upon arriving, Alex took a deep breath and knocked on the door. Sarah opened it, and upon seeing both men, her expression changed from surprise to a contained coldness. "Mum, we need to talk," Alex said firmly. "There's something you need to know." Sarah invited them in, though with evident reluctance. She led them into the living room, where they sat in silence. Alex broke the ice, determined to be direct. "Mum, I've discovered something important about my father," he began. "Mr. Thompson is my biological father." Sarah froze, her face paling and her hands trembling slightly. She looked at Thompson with eyes filled with a mixture of pain and resentment. "It's true, Sarah," Mr. Thompson interjected. "I've come to apologize. I never knew you were pregnant when we were separated. If I had—" Sarah interrupted him, her voice firm but shaky. "No, James. You can't just show up after all these years and expect everything to be all right. You don't know what I've been through." Her voice broke and her eyes welled up with unshed tears. Alex looked at his mother with concern, understanding for the first time the magnitude of the pain she had silently endured for so long. "Mum, please, listen to him," Alex said softly. "He wants to explain what happened." Sarah took a deep breath and wiped at her eyes. She stood up and began to pace the room, as if trying to gather her thoughts. "James, when you left me alone and pregnant," she said finally, her voice thick with emotion. "I had no one. My parents turned their backs on me, and I had to fight every single day to raise Alex. There were nights I couldn't sleep, crying silently, wondering why you weren't here. Mr. Thompson stood up and took a step toward her, but stopped when he saw Sarah's look. Sarah, I can't change the past. I can only apologize and beg you to give me a chance to make amends, he said, his voice full of sincere remorse. I didn't know what you were going through. I was a coward for not standing up to my family and fighting for us. Sarah looked directly into his eyes, and for a moment the room was held in a tense silence. It's not that simple, James. I've built a life without you. I raised Alex on my own. How do you expect me to forgive and forget all the pain you caused? Alex, sensing the desperation in his mother's words, stood up and went to her. Mum, I know it's difficult, but maybe, if you listen to what he has to say, we can find a way to heal together, he said softly. Sarah looked at her son and then back at Thompson, her conflicted emotions clearly visible on her face. I've spent years trying to forget, but every time I looked at Alex, I saw a part of you. He was a constant reminder of the love I lost and the man who abandoned me, she said, her voice barely a whisper. Mr. Thompson took a step closer, his voice thick with emotion. Sarah, I never wanted you to suffer like that. If I could turn back time, I would. I only ask for a chance to prove to you that I can be the man and the father you need. Sarah looked at him for a long moment, her mind replaying the memories and the pain. Finally she spoke, her voice full of resolution. I can't forgive you now, James. The pain is too deep. I need time to process this, she said, her voice firm but with a hint of sadness. But for Alex's sake, I'm willing to listen. I promise nothing more. Alex felt a mixture of relief and worry. He knew the road to reconciliation would be long and difficult, but this was a first step. Mr. Thompson nodded, grateful for the opportunity, however small. Thank you, Sarah. I will do everything I can to earn your forgiveness and your trust, he said sincerely. The tension in the room eased slightly, though the air was still thick with unresolved emotions. Sarah sat down, exhausted from the confrontation, as Alex and Mr. Thompson prepared to leave, knowing this was only the beginning of a long process of healing and reconciliation. Determined to make amends, Thompson began visiting Sarah and Alex regularly. He started with small gestures, helping with house repairs, bringing groceries, and sometimes even cooking meals. One day, while fixing a squeaky door, Thompson addressed Sarah in a soft but firm voice. Sarah, I know I can't erase the past, but I want you to know that I'm here for you both. Not just as an absent father, but as someone who truly cares. Sarah, observing from the kitchen, nodded slowly. Although her heart still held deep scars, she couldn't deny the sincerity in Thompson's actions. I know, James. I've seen the effort you're putting in. But this isn't easy for me, she replied, not looking up from the dishes she was washing. As the weeks went by, Thompson and Alex began spending more time together. They shared long walks in the nearby park and deep conversations about life, dreams, and Alex's aspirations. Dad, why didn't you ever come back for Mum? Alex asked one afternoon as they sat on a park bench. Thompson sighed, staring out at the horizon before answering. Alex, I was young and foolish. I was afraid of facing my family, and I let their pressure get to me. There's no excuse for what I did, and I regret every day that I wasn't there to fight for you both. Alex nodded, understanding the complexity of human emotions and the mistakes of the past. The important thing is that you're here now, Alex said, with a tone of acceptance that surprised Thompson. Meanwhile, Sarah was beginning to accept Thompson's help around the house. One morning, as they were both preparing breakfast, a heartfelt conversation unfolded. "James, I can't deny that you've changed. I see the effort and dedication you're putting into earning our trust," Sarah said, breaking the silence of the kitchen. Thompson, expertly whisking eggs, looked up and met her gaze with gratitude. "Thank you, Sarah. That means a lot to me to hear. I'm willing to do whatever it takes to make amends," he replied, with a sincerity Sarah couldn't ignore. Daily routines began to be filled with small moments of connection. Thompson would accompany Sarah to the market, help Alex with his projects, and often stay for dinner. Slowly, the emotional barriers Sarah had erected began to crumble. One evening after dinner, Sarah and Thompson sat on the porch, enjoying the cool night air. The silence between them was comfortable, filled with unspoken understanding. "Remember when we used to come to this very porch and talk about our dreams?" Sarah asked, a wistful smile on her face. Thompson nodded, recalling those days vividly. "Yes, Sarah. I've never forgotten those times. You were always my greatest inspiration," he said, his tone conveying a deep affection. Sarah looked into his eyes and for the first time in many years felt that she could trust him again. "Maybe we can try to rebuild what we lost," she said, almost in a whisper. Thompson reached out his hand, and as he took Sarah's, they both felt a glimmer of hope. Though the road to full reconciliation would be long and fraught with challenges, they knew they were willing to walk it together. Alex, watching from the window, smiled to himself. His family, though broken in the past, was starting to heal, and as he watched his parents rediscover each other, he understood that love and forgiveness were the most powerful forces to overcome any adversity. The night went on, and with it a new chapter in their lives. A chapter full of promise, effort, and the possibility of a brighter future. Sarah's house had begun to fill with an air of renewal and hope. The days of silence and tension had given way to evenings of long, sincere conversations. Sarah and Thompson, sitting on the porch, spoke of their past and the decisions that had led them to this point. "James, remember when we used to walk through the park at sunset?" Sarah asked, gazing at the horizon as the sun dipped low. "Of course, Sarah. Those were the most peaceful and happiest times of my life," Thompson replied, a nostalgic smile on his face. "I always wondered what would have happened if I had been brave enough to stay." Sarah nodded, understanding the weight of his words. "We can't change the past, but we can build a better future," she said, meeting his gaze. "Perhaps this is our second chance." These conversations became commonplace, allowing both to rebuild bridges they had thought irreparably broken. They talked about the dreams they once shared, the fears that separated them, and their hopes for the future. Alex, observing these exchanges, felt a quiet joy seeing his parents begin to heal their wounds. One afternoon, Alex decided it was time to celebrate this new beginning. Mr. Thompson's birthday was approaching, and he thought a family dinner would be the perfect occasion to solidify this new stage. "Mum, Dad, how about we celebrate Dad's birthday with a special dinner?" Alex suggested enthusiastically. Sarah and Thompson exchanged a knowing look and nodded. "I think that's a wonderful idea, Alex," Sarah replied. "We can cook together and make it a night to remember." The birthday arrived, and the house was filled with a frenzy of happy activity. Alex and Thompson took care of the shopping, while Sarah orchestrated everything in the kitchen. There was laughter and banter as they prepared the meal, creating an atmosphere of camaraderie and love. "Dad, can you pass me the carrots?" Alex asked, chopping vegetables for the salad. "Sure, son. Here you go," Thompson replied, handing him the carrots with a smile. "You know, I never imagined we'd all be together like this someday." Sarah, listening from the stove, smiled to herself. This moment was proof that despite everything, love and effort could heal the deepest wounds. When everything was ready, they sat down at the table, which they had decorated with candles and fresh flowers. The food was a feast of flavors and aromas, but the most important thing was the company. "I want to make a toast," Alex said, raising his glass, "to our family, to second chances, and to the love that brought us here. Happy birthday, Dad." Thompson, visibly moved, raised his glass and looked at Sarah and Alex with gratitude. "Thank you, Alex. Thank you, Sarah. This is the best gift I could have asked for. Cheers." Dinner continued with more laughter and shared memories. They talked about the happy times from the past and the plans they had for the future. There was a sense of peace and unity that filled the house, something Alex had longed for a very long time. After dinner, they moved to the living room where Alex had prepared one final surprise. A photo album he had created with old and new pictures symbolizing their journey as a family. Sarah and Thompson carefully turned the pages, reminiscing and laughing with each image. "This is wonderful, Alex," Sarah said, tears welling up in her eyes. "Thank you for reminding us what truly matters." Thompson nodded, his voice thick with emotion. "Yes, Alex, thank you for bringing us back together. I promise I won't let you down again." The night stretched on with more stories and promises, solidifying the bond they had begun to rebuild. As the house settled into the quiet of the night, Alex felt a sense of hope. His family had found their way back to each other, and he knew that even though the road wouldn't be easy, they were ready to face it together. The setting sun bathed the city in a warm, golden light as Sarah drove home after grocery shopping for dinner. The traffic flowed smoothly, and she felt content, thinking about the evening ahead with her family. They'd planned a special dinner to celebrate their reconciliation and the future they'd decided to build together. Suddenly, as she rounded a bend, something went terribly wrong. Sarah's car began to swerve, and before she could react, she lost control of the wheel. Panic seized her as the vehicle veered into oncoming traffic. A truck was approaching fast, and in a desperate attempt to avoid a collision, Sarah jerked the steering wheel. But it was no use. The impact was brutal, and the world around her dissolved into a chaos of twisted metal and shattered glass. The sensation of pain was immediate and overwhelming. Sarah tried to move, but she was trapped. Her vision blurred, and the wail of approaching sirens was the last thing she heard before she lost consciousness. Back at the house, Thompson and Alex were setting the table, laughing and talking about plans for the future. Suddenly, the shrill ring of the phone shattered the calm. Alex answered, and as he listened to the words of the person on the other end of the line, his face drained of color. "Dad, Mum's been in an accident. She's at the hospital. We have to go now," Alex said, his voice trembling with fear. The drive to the hospital was a blur of tense silence and silent prayers. Thompson, hands gripping the steering wheel tightly, tried to remain calm, but his mind was flooded with dark thoughts. Alex, sitting beside him, clutched his seat, trying not to succumb to panic. Upon arriving at the hospital, they were met by a doctor with a grave expression. "Your wife has been in a very serious accident. She's in surgery right now. We'll do everything we can, but the next few hours are critical," the doctor said, trying to inject a note of hope into his words. Thompson and Alex sank into chairs in the waiting room, their hearts heavy with dread and uncertainty. The hours dragged by, each minute an eternity. Thompson held his head in his hands, whispering desperate prayers. Alex, eyes filled with tears, stared fixedly at the operating room door, willing the doctor to emerge with good news. Finally, the doctor reappeared, his expression little changed. Sarah is in critical condition. We've done all we can, but now it's up to her strength and her will to fight, the doctor said honestly. The news hit Thompson and Alex like a physical blow. They made their way to Sarah's bedside, where she lay in the ICU, surrounded by machines monitoring her every vital sign. Thompson took her hand, feeling the coldness of her skin, and whispered words of encouragement. "Sarah, please fight. We need you. Don't leave us now," he pleaded, his voice breaking. Alex stepped closer to the other side of the bed, taking his mother's other hand. Tears streamed freely down his cheeks as he struggled to find the words. "Mom, you're the strongest person I know. You've been through so much. Please, don't give up now. Dad and I need you," he said, his voice barely a whisper. Hours turned into days, and Sarah continued to cling to life. Thompson and Alex remained by her side, taking turns to ensure she was never alone. Each day brought a mixture of hope and despair, as doctors did everything they could to stabilize her condition. One afternoon, while Thompson sat alone with Sarah, he leaned over and whispered in her ear, "Sarah, if you can hear me, I want you to know that I love you. I've always loved you. Forgive me for all the pain I caused you. If you wake up, I promise to spend the rest of my life making you happy." The heart monitor beeped steadily, and Thompson felt his heart sink. Words seemed so inadequate compared to the overwhelming sense of loss that threatened to engulf him. That night, as Alex rested in the waiting room, Thompson remained by Sarah's side, holding her hand and praying silently. Tragedy had struck, but love and hope still flickered in the hearts of both Thompson and Alex. They knew that as long as they had each other, they could face whatever lay ahead. The hospital was silent except for the steady beep of the machines monitoring Sarah. Thompson and Alex took turns staying by her side, never leaving her alone for a moment. The hours stretched into days, filled with a palpable sense of anguish. The doctors had done everything they could, but the situation remained critical. Alex sat beside his mother's bed, holding her hand and speaking to her softly, hoping that somehow his words would reach her. "Mum, I'm here. Dad's here too. Please fight. We need you," he would say, his voice thick with emotion. Thompson, in an effort to stay strong, stood on the other side of the bed, watching Sarah with eyes filled with sadness and regret. Every passing minute was a painful reminder of the years he had lost. One afternoon, while Alex rested in a nearby chair, Thompson leaned over Sarah and whispered in her ear, "Sarah, I know I made a lot of mistakes, but I'm here now. Please, wake up. I love you so much. I don't know what I would do without you." The heart monitor continued its monotonous beeping, and Thompson felt the weight of the world settle on his shoulders. The days blurred into a wearying cycle of hope and despair. Then, in a moment of stillness, Sarah's lips moved slightly. Thompson leaned in closer, his heart pounding. "James," she whispered weakly, "I forgive you, please. Take good care of Alex. I love you." And with those words, Sarah breathed her last. The beeping of the monitor flattened into a steady tone, signaling that her heart had stopped. "Sarah, no," he cried out, his voice raw with anguish. Alex, startled awake, rushed over to see his mother lying still and his father crumpled on the floor. He knelt beside Thompson, embracing him as they both wept for the loss of Sarah. Sarah's funeral was a grey, rainy day, a fitting reflection of the mood of all those present. Friends and family gathered to say goodbye to a woman who had been the rock and the heart of their family. Words of comfort and supportive embraces did little to ease the pain that Thompson and Alex felt. At the cemetery, Thompson stood before the freshly dug grave and, in a voice choked with emotion, made a promise to fulfill Sarah's dying wish. Sarah, I promise to take care of Alex. I'll do everything I can to be the father he deserves and to honor your memory. I love you, and I always will. Alex, his eyes filled with tears, nodded as he listened to his father's words. He knew that the road ahead would be difficult, but he also knew that together they could face any obstacle. After the funeral, Thompson and Alex returned to the house that now felt unbearably empty without Sarah's presence. Thompson, determined to honor his promise, began to take a more active role in Alex's life. They spent time together, talking about the future and reminiscing about happy times with Sarah. "Dad, thanks for being here," Alex said one evening as they ate dinner together. "I know it's not easy, but I appreciate everything you're doing." "Alex, I'm doing this because I love you, and because it's what Sarah would have wanted," Thompson replied, his voice full of sincerity. "We're going to get through this together, and we'll make her proud." Time began to heal the wounds, though Sarah's absence was ever present. Thompson and Alex found solace in their shared grief and in the happy memories they cherished. Slowly, they began to build a new routine, one that honored Sarah's memory and strengthened their bond as father and son. Thompson's promise wasn't just empty words. He threw himself into supporting Alex in all his endeavors, attending his presentations and cheering him on every step of the way. Alex, in turn, found in his father a source of guidance and support that he had never had before. As the sun set on another day, Thompson and Alex sat on the porch, gazing at the stars. They had been through so much, but they knew that the future still held moments of joy and hope. "Dad, I think Mom would be proud of us," Alex said, breaking the silence. "Yes, Alex, I'm sure she is, and she always will be," Thompson replied, a wistful smile on his face. Together, they held on to the promise to keep Sarah's memory alive and to move forward with love and strength. Tragedy had left its mark, but it had also forged an unbreakable connection between them. And so concludes our moving story of love, redemption, and second chances. I hope this story has touched your hearts as much as it has mine. Each of us faces challenges and difficult times in life, but true strength lies in our ability to forgive, heal, and move forward. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to give it a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel for more heartwarming and inspirational stories. Leave your comments below. I'd love to know what you thought of Sarah, Thompson, and Alex's journey. And remember, there is always hope, even in the darkest of times. Keep faith and love in your hearts, for those are the true engines that propel us forward. Thank you for joining us, and see you in the next video.